The Russian Far East is a region in North Asia which is coextensive with Russia's easternmost territory, the Far Eastern Federal District, which is between Lake Baikal in eastern Siberia and the Pacific Ocean. The Far Eastern Federal District shares land borders with Mongolia, China and North Korea to its south, and shares maritime borders with Japan to its southeast and with the United States to its northeast. Although commonly considered part of Siberia abroad, the Russian Far East is categorized separately from Siberia in Russian regional schemes. In Russia, the region is usually referred to as just Far East. Depending on the context, Russians reached the Pacific coast in 1647 with the establishment of Okhotsk, and the Russian Empire consolidated its control over the Russian Far East in the 19th century. After the annexation of part of Chinese Manchuria, Primorskaya Oblast was established as a separate administrative division of the Russian Empire in 1856, with its administrative center at Khabarovsk. Several entities with the name Far East existed in the first half of the 20th century, all with rather different boundaries. Until 2000, the Russian Far East lacked officially defined boundaries. A single term, Siberia and the Far East, often referred to Russia's regions east of the Urals, without drawing a clear distinction between Siberia and the Far East. In 2000, Russia's federal subjects were grouped into larger federal districts, one of which, the Far Eastern Federal District, comprised Amur Oblast, the Chukotka Autonomous Okrug, the Jewish Autonomous Oblast, Kamchatka Oblast with the Koryak Autonomous Okrug, Khabarovsk Krai, Magadan Oblast, Primorsky Krai, the Sakha Republic, and Sakhalin Oblast. In November 2018, Zabaikalsky Krai and the Republic of Buryatia were added. They had previously formed part of the Siberian Federal District. Since 2000, Russians have increasingly used the term Far East to refer to the Federal District, though the term is often also used more loosely. Defined by the boundaries of the Federal District, the Far East has an area of 6.2 million square kilometers, over one-third of Russia's total area. Russia in the early 1900s persistently sought a warm water port on the Pacific Ocean for the Imperial Russian Navy as well as to facilitate maritime trade. The recently established Pacific seaport of Vladivostok and the failure of the 1903 negotiations between Japan and the Tsar's government. Japan chose war to protect its domination of Korea and adjacent territories. Russia, meanwhile, saw war as a means of distracting its populace from government repression and of rallying patriotism in the aftermath of several general strikes. Japan issued a declaration of war on the 8th of February 1904. However, 3 hours before Japan's declaration of war was received by the Russian government, the Imperial Japanese Navy attacked the Russian 1st Pacific Squadron at Port Arthur. 8 days later, Russia declared war on Japan. The war ended in September 1905 with a Japanese victory following the fall of Port Arthur and the failed Russian invasion of Japan through the Korean Peninsula and northeast China. Also, Japan had threatened to invade Primorsky Krai via Korea. The warring parties signed the Treaty of Portsmouth on the 5th of September 1905, and both Japan and Russia agreed to evacuate Manchuria and to return its sovereignty to China. But Japan was allowed to lease the Liaodong Peninsula and the Russian rail system in southern Manchuria with its access to strategic resources. Japan also received the southern half of the island of Sakhalin from Russia. In 1907, Japan forced Russia to confiscate land from Korean settlers due to a fear of an invasion of Korea and of the ousting of Japanese troops by Korean guerrillas. Between 1937 and 1939, the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin deported over 200,000 Koreans to Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, fearing that the Koreans might act as spies for Japan. Many Koreans died on the way in cattle trains due to starvation, illness, or freezing conditions. Soviet authorities purged and executed many community leaders. Korea Saram were not allowed to travel outside of Central Asia for the next 15 years. Koreans were also not allowed to use the Korean language, and its use began to become lost with the involvement of the Korea-Mar dialect and the use of Russian. Development of numerous remote locations in the Soviet Far East relied on Gulag labor camps during Stalin's rule, especially in the region's northern half. After the death of Stalin in 1953, the large-scale use of forced labor waned and was superseded by volunteer employees attracted by relatively high wages. During the Japanese invasion of Manchuria in 1931, the Soviets occupied Bolshoi-Ussurievsky Island, Yanlong Island, and several adjacent islets to separate the city of Khabarovsk from the territory controlled by a possibly hostile power. Indeed, Japan turned its military attention to Soviet territories. Conflict